Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Today's webinar is Capturing Great Photos with a Smartphone. It's May 6th, and I'm so happy you could join us. We have over 100 participants on the call, so obviously we have a really exciting topic, and I can't wait to get into it today. This webinar series is really meant to give you some really great tips as we move through the pandemic. COVID-19 has had negative impacts on the industry. We want to really help by providing really great content. For those of you joining us today for the first time, Tourism Nova Scotia is the provincial marketing organization for the province. We market Nova Scotia as a vacation destination, and we lead initiatives to help grow the tourism industry. So thank you for joining us today, and let's get right into it. If you have any questions throughout, really encourage you to put them at the Q&A on the bottom, and we'll make sure that we get the questions answered. If you think of something after the fact, that's fine. Just send us an email and we'll be able to help you out. Anything that we talk about today, whether it's Dave mentioning any kind of links or us, we will share it out in an email after the fact. So don't worry about scribbling it down. We'll make sure we have it there. We're scheduled for about an hour, but if we go over, that's okay. It will be recorded and we'll share that out with you. If you have to leave, that's okay. You can watch the recording later. If you can stay, even better. So to get the best out of these webinars, we really encourage you to ask any questions. We really want some great dialogue. And the best webinars are ones that we have a lot of participation from our participants. So we have Dave Culligan here today from 365 Media. He is the CEO and founder of 365 Media. It's a creative agency based in Halifax, has worked with, and Toronto as well, has worked with local clients ranging from Nova Scotia Power, St. Mary's University, Steel Auto Group, and nationally and internationally with brands like Puma, eBay, Porsche, and more. I think we'll get some examples of some of those photos today, or some of the shoots. You know, I met Dave a long time ago, and right when he was starting out, and now they work on a much bigger scale, but you know, iPhones are still very important. They work on larger scale productions with state-of-the-art camera, lighting, and production equipment. And Dave got to start in the industry shooting entirely on his iPhone, captures his day-to-day and a large portion of his own social media content on his iPhone. And it's really important that we use this tool that we have to make sure we can promote our businesses the best way we can. You know, Dave is conscious of the negative impacts of technology and smartphones can have on many of us. And Dave remains excited about the ways these tools have democratized content creation and are enabling small businesses to grow if they use them well. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Dave to take over the screen and give us his presentation today on how to use that smartphone that we have.
Hello, am I in the driver's seat now?
You're in the driver's seat. I can hear you. I can't see. There we go. Welcome, Dave.
You all good? I just saw a comment from Matt DeLong, so there doesn't seem to be any audio, but it sounds like we're good if you're responding to me now, Nick.
You're great. Yeah.
Awesome. So hello, everyone. And this admittedly is still a little bit strange to not see all of your faces and imagine that I'm speaking to 50 to 100 people right now. But I want to start by thanking Nick for the awesome intro and the Tourism and Digital Nova Scotia teams for having me today. And I want to send out lots of love to all of you business owners and Nova Scotians back home. I'm in Toronto right now and have been here for a little over a year after expanding my business here. And the idea all along was to be back and forth and continue to live in Nova Scotia as well. But I've been stuck here and I do miss it like crazy. And I appreciate you guys and what you're going through right now and all the hard work that you're putting in to make sure that your businesses can survive and thrive and continue to make Nova Scotia the special place that it is. So I'm hopeful that today some of the tips and tricks and information, stories, links, resources that I can share will be helpful for you guys in telling your stories, getting your businesses out there, and bringing some bucks through the door.
So Dave, I just want to jump in really quickly, and I won't do this often, but someone had asked, is this just for iPhone? And I wrote back and said, a lot of this will be applicable to most smartphones. So let me know if I'm telling the truth there.
Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. There'd be some small differences, but for the most part, it would be, I'd say 95% transferable.
Sounds like things are heating up there in Toronto.
Yeah, I apologize. That's probably going to continue to happen. So I'll speak loudly over the obnoxious sirens here. So Nick, I'll just ask you to poke me if any questions pop up, and I'm hopeful that today I can answer questions as we go and kind of get some information from you guys. But we'll see how well that actually works. Start off by just telling a little bit about my story, and Nick touched on it, but when I graduated university, I think 6 years ago now, I had no background in photography or any creative fields, but I found some YouTubers online. Casey Neistat would be one of the big examples if anyone knows who he is. And I was really inspired by his work and the way that he went out there with no formal training and was able to just use the tools that he had at his disposal to tell stories and create awesome video content, photo content. Through that inspiration, I decided to create a video every day for a year, exploring the province for really the first time in my life, having grown up there and really never appreciated all the natural beauty that was there, or the amazing small business community that we have. That was shot almost entirely on iPhone for the first, well, it was shot entirely on iPhone for the first 132 days. After that, I was able to launch a GoFundMe and start to purchase some camera equipment. But up until that point, I was using my iPhone for everything. I showed up to my first big commercial gig for Ellis Dawn, and they asked where my camera was, and I pulled out my iPhone, and I was like, this is what I use. So it served me very well. Again, as Nick mentioned, today I own and operate 365. We've got tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of camera equipment, but I still love to use the iPhone for so many projects. I only shoot photos on iPhone. Admittedly, I don't even really know how to take photos on a real camera, nor am I interested in doing that. And now, as a business owner with 7 employees, like many of you, I don't have the time to be learning complicated softwares. I want something that's quick and effective, and the smartphone tends to serve that purpose really well. I'll just go now through a few recent examples of photos that I took on iPhone, and most of them are a little bit grainier than they usually would be, because these are ones that I post on Instagram, so it'd be small, and I try to add that sort of grainy, filmy look. But this is the Lionsgate Bridge in Vancouver from a recent trip that I took over Christmas. And I was doing a gig with Fireball Canada, the whiskey company, and taking some photos and video for them. And the entire thing was shot on iPhone, which was awesome because I was actually able to enjoy the trip rather than be focused on the technology the whole time. This was another one near a fire in really challenging lighting conditions. And I was able to just snap a couple quick photos with cold hands and still get something that I think looks really polished and the client was really happy with. My friend Graham up in the mountains, we went out with, perhaps some of you might be familiar with the company Canadian Wilderness Adventures out in BC. We went out on a trip with them on some sleds. It was really fun. Out on a suspension bridge at North Vancouver Falls. Another one here on the way out of that trail, using the 2x zoom to create some a compressed feel to the photo. And I would have taken probably 40 photos to get that light just right. And that's a big thing that I'll touch on, is just the importance and the benefit of just snapping a whole bunch of photos and figuring out afterwards.
Dave, when you say 2x zoom, what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So I wish you guys can see me, right? The small window. So when I say 2x zoom, on your iPhone here, you've got these settings. There's the 2, there's the 1x, and there's the 0.5. The 0.5 is going to give you like a wide angle, and you can see that it's like showing a wide angle of the room. This is kind of tough to show. And then you've got your 1x, which is just the regular zoom, and then the 2x is going to zoom like further out and bring
okay, thanks.
and foreground closer together.
Perfect.
Here's another one from that Ski-Doo trip, using portrait mode to kind of blur out the background and create some focus on the subject of the photo, which is the product in this case. Another one coming back down. And then this is an example of a low light photo. So this would have been almost pitch black. And on the newer smartphones, you've got these low light, long exposure features. So if you hit this arrow up here, tough to do it on the screen. Then there's some settings down here. And just if you were to Google, and we'll provide links afterwards, just Google long exposure settings or how to take long exposure photos on iPhone, you'd be able to learn how to do this. So what it does, what a long exposure is you can set it to like 3 to 10 seconds, and it's going to allow light to come in through the iris of the phone for longer so that it's able to basically see in the dark. It honestly still blows my mind that the iPhones are able to do this. Like this would have cost you $20,000 for a camera that could do this 10 years ago. Just another one from that same hike. Using the wide angle, you can see that you're able to see a lot more of the background. And I've just centered myself. It's kind of a fun technique. If you just put your subject right in the center of the photo, oftentimes it can look really nice, especially if you have a simple background.
Dave, so, this is the first time I've ever done this in a webinar, and I hate to jump in, but these questions seem very applicable to the moment.
Yeah, I just caught those there. Yeah.
So one question was, would this be the same as night mode sight? And I only asked now because it's applicable to what you were just speaking about.
Mm-hmm. I'm not actually sure that terminology, night mode. Maybe that's a Samsung thing or an Android thing, but I would imagine that the night mode on any phone would just be a long exposure feature to let more light into the lens. It is Android. Yeah. So I would imagine that's the same thing, or it might add some auto brightness, but to be honest, I would Google that. Is night mode long exposure? And that would probably answer that question.
So do you use a tripod for that?
No, and that's one of my favorite things about iPhones is that they have amazing built-in stabilization. So I just held the camera still, and admittedly, you don't even have to hold it that still. I'll hold my breath even because I want to get it as clear and crisp as I can. But it's pretty awesome that you really don't need a tripod for iPhone long exposures. And then I've got a few other photos here from back home. One of a beautiful day from Peggy's Cove, just using a simple kind of reflection technique, getting the camera down low by some still water. I think that one's pretty beautiful. And then one from the Eastern Passage, using the portrait mode again to create that focus on the campfire there and get that sunset kind of blurred out of focus in the background.
Dave, one last thing, since you have so many visuals here, one thing I stopped and forgot to mention off the top is that we have closed captioning on, so to make it more accessible. But if you don't want that, you can just go to the bottom of your kind of toolbar under More, and you can just turn off. So that's more for people that that is popping up our words and they can't see it. So just shut it off. So that's great, and we'll get right back to it. Thanks, Dave.
Did you just shut it off, did you say?
Anyone that wants to shut it off on their own can just go to the bottom and shut it off.
Okay, great. Because I'm not seeing it, so I'm not seeing what's covered up. I'm imagining that's probably what you're referring to, like the reflection being covered up, but I'll give everyone a second there to do that. Just two more here. One from the Northwest Arm, again, using that still water reflection technique. And I mean, a big thing is just getting out for those nice hours, the getting up early for the sunrise hours in the summer, and making sure that you're out for that nice golden hour late at night. And then one from the Cabot Trail on the right here, kind of hard to go wrong with those beautiful fall colors. I think that one's snapped out of a car. It's not like we even stopped on the side of the road. Like that's from the passenger side of a car out of a window. And this was a shot of our team from a project at Luckett Vineyards. And I think that for a lot of the tourism operators, like this is a really simple but nice example of ways to capture some of their customers, like chucking their arms around each other. We do this all the time when we're on shoots with clients. It's like, hey, let's get a shot quickly with the client so that we can show everyone on LinkedIn or on Instagram who we're working with, where we were, and just constantly trying to maintain that presence online. So now those are some examples, and perhaps if we have some time, we can come back to some of those and I can speak more to the techniques or softwares that were used to capture and edit those, but I'll just go through a few basic techniques for taking nice photos for folks who might have a little bit less experience. So one of the first ones and most common ones is the rule of thirds. So I would suggest familiarizing yourself with this. You can bring up a grid on your phone in your settings. I actually have it, if you can see it there, those lines intersecting, and I keep that up there all the time. And so photos are going to look a lot nicer and just be more pleasing to the eye generally if your subjects, your focal points are either on one of these lines, along one of these lines. So if I were taking a nice landscape photo of a lake or an ocean, I might want that line where the water meets the tree line on that bottom third line or on that top third line. Or if I'm taking a landscape oriented photo, meaning horizontal like this, and I am taking it of a person, like in this instance, I might want that person vertically on the left third line or on that right third line. And if you can get a face or the true focal point of your subject on one of these intersections where the lines meet, that's a really good kind of rule of thumb for a photo that's gonna, again, be pleasing to the human eye and also just perform well on social media. Another big thing is just familiarizing yourself with light, how to control light sources, and how to just understand your light sources. So this is not an absolute, but a rule of thumb would be shoot from your light source at your subject, not into your light source. So this is an iPhone photo. This is me just sitting next to my patio window. And what I did was I set up the window on my left side and I turned out the light inside, and I put the phone on selfie mode, and I tapped the screen like this to set the focus, and then dragged down to reduce the exposure so that the dark side of my face is more shadowed off. And then obviously I did some post-production editing, and I'll talk a bit about some of the apps that I use in a bit to make this a little bit more moody, but I think this just speaks well to what a moody and high quality photo you can get when you do understand those light sources a bit better. Just having a look at the Nick, I'll have a quick look at these questions here and see if I can rapid fire a few of these. Is that cool?
That's awesome.
Yeah. See, what model of iPhone are you using? I've got the 11 here. I actually had the 12 come in the mail last night. So what is the oldest model you would recommend using? I mean, I think the 10 and up are pretty good. I think that, I mean, I would advocate investing in the newest one possible. I think for the return that you can get as a business for like $1,200, or if you can get a deal and maybe give one of your employees a phone, that would probably go a long way, and pay $100 a month and pay for that over 2 years. I think if you got someone who is invested and wants to take a lot of photos, you can get a huge return on that. So I mean, I'd advocate getting the newest one possible. I think that the leap in capabilities is always pretty huge from one to the next. I see Scott asked, are you using Adobe Lightroom to edit your recent examples? No, no Lightroom. I find Lightroom too clunky and complicated for me. I know you can do a lot with it, but I use VSCO. I just find it really simple, slap a quick filter on it, make a few other tweaks. Let's see, is her t-shirt position intentional? I think that was probably about Haley earlier. The answer would be no. I don't know what the position was. I can't see what Dave is doing, just his screen. That's Nikki. That's probably a Zoom thing. Do you shoot in full screen? I think so. Is that like 16:9 versus 3:4? I'm not sure. How do you get that grid pattern on the camera from Crystal? If you just go into your settings and hit camera, you'll be able to find that in there, or just Google how to get grid on iPhone, and it'll be pretty easy. Is there much difference between the 11 and 12? Admittedly, I had just said there's a big jump. I'd say it's probably the smaller jump that I've seen in the past few. So I'm still using the 11. Just got the 12, like I said, but the 11 is super, super, super solid. So back to some tips and techniques here. Symmetry is a really easy one. So you can see in this photo, it's obviously very symmetrical. Another thing that's just enjoyable, pleasing to the human eye. That's an easy one that you can lean on. Pretty simple. Another one is shooting through a foreground subject. So if, like, you can imagine you're taking this photo, it kind of reminds me of Gaff Point in Nova Scotia, and this person, like these flowers, you could imagine are probably at like shin or knee height for this person. So they could have just taken this photo from where we naturally do, like up by their chest here. But what they would have done, say this is the flowers here, is they would have crouched down and probably zoomed in using that 2x zoom, perhaps, and shot through the flowers to kind of just paint a more full picture, a more interesting picture of what it is that's going on there. So that's an easy one. And you could also tap on the flowers on your screen, and that would place them in focus, or you could use portrait mode. That would create even more of a blur in that background and a focus on the foreground subject. And this slide speaks to that perspective. This is Sam behind me on my team. I asked him yesterday to stand up. Like this photo is taken from the exact same place. Like I didn't move my feet. But one's taken from low, one's taken from up high, and you can see just what a big difference that makes. Literally standing in the same place and just changing the elevation by 3 or 4 feet. And oftentimes, again, I'm not a trained photographer. I just shoot tons of photos. So if I'm getting an important photo, I'll take wide ones, I'll take zoomed ones, I'll take regular ones, portrait mode. I'm just snapping away. I'm taking them from up high, I'm taking them from down low, I'm moving to the left a little bit, moving to the right. And I just figure if I take 50 to 100, and this is a really important photo for me, something at the end is going to be great, and I can go through and select my favorite few and then pick from those. I think Cindy had mentioned that there were some questions about like orientation of photos. So when I say a landscape photo, I could be actually referring to you're shooting a photo of a landscape, but more often it would be referring to the orientation of the photo. So landscape would be like a horizontal photo, so taken like this, and portrait would be vertical like that. So I can speak to that quickly, but I would suggest either familiarizing yourself with which orientations are preferred for different platforms, or maybe leaning on a student who probably, or a young employee who that would just come second nature to. So Instagram prefers vertical content, both for the posts and for stories. It just takes up more space, which means more chance of people seeing it, liking it, which means more eyes on your content, your business, which means more customers, hopefully. And I actually just the photo on the left, sorry about those sirens again. The photo on the left, I actually just cropped out of the photo on the right, but I think it paints a nice picture of how important framing is. Like, it's the same photo, but it really looks like a much different photo when cropped like that. So this image was actually screenshotted off of my Instagram. So if I had cropped the original photo, it wouldn't be quite so pixelated like that. The iPhones take such high quality photos now that you actually can crop quite far in and still maintain a lot of the resolution. Is that clear, Nick? Did that answer? Do you think that makes sense?
Yeah, no, that's great. And if there's any questions or anybody needs any further clarification, this is the time for sure. The question was, do you edit on your iPhone or ever upload to a computer? And then my follow-up would be, could you just tell us what the answer was of the actual software you said you use instead of Lightroom?
Yeah. So the answer to that question would be 99% of the time, I don't edit on my computer. I edit on my phone, and I use VSCO, VSCO. I just find it really, there are more powerful tools out there that you can do more with, but most of the time I use VSCO. It's got some really nice free filters, or if you pay like the $30 per year for the full version, which I do, I'd recommend that. You can get some really nice base filters and then make some other very simple tweaks, changing the contrast, maybe a bit of a fade, or changing the warmth on a photo, and those will go a long way for you. In terms of transferring it over to a computer, maybe popping it into Photoshop to put like a fake sun flare in a corner or accentuate a sun flare. But yeah, 99 times out of 100, I'm just editing on iPhone to keep it simple. I see someone asked orientation. Vertical is portrait, horizontal is landscape. And I see Terry here mentioned Snapseed, also an awesome one. And that is a little bit more powerful than VSCO. You can do a little bit more. You can brighten up specific areas of the photo, not just the whole photo. But I'd say it is a little more complicated, a bit more of a learning curve for folks who are not as native to these types of softwares or to photography.
Any of these just apps that are available to download in the App Store or the Google Play?
Yep, all quite easy to find, and they're all mentioned at the end here, and they'll be in the little cheat sheet with some links that I'll send out afterwards.
About the orientation, some additional recommendations for each kind of subject to photograph. For example, coasts versus people versus buildings.
So what orientation for which thing? I'd say it's yeah, I'd say orientation for me is less about the subject and more about the end use. So if it's for LinkedIn or Facebook, it's probably going to be horizontal landscape, because that's the kind of photo that's more native to those platforms. Or if it's for Instagram, I'm probably shooting it vertical. But I guess part of that is personal taste as well. All right, jump to the next slide here. I think I've spoken to this a little bit already, but in terms of your focus and exposure, one thing to familiarize yourself with is how to use these different settings around the phone. So setting focus requires just tapping on an iPhone where you want to focus, but it's also going to expose for the thing that you tap on. So if you tap on something bright, like where the light is on my face here, it's going to probably darken the photo. Or if you tap on a dark spot, like my hat or where one of the shadows is, it's probably going to brighten the whole photo. And the way that you can manually change that is to swipe up and down on your screen to either brighten or darken. So to increase the exposure or decrease the exposure. You can also lock the focus if you want to make sure that it stays on a certain thing by just holding your finger down on the screen for a second, and you'll see it kind of snap, and it'll give you a bit of feedback to know that it's locked in. And I mentioned the zoom, portrait, and wide mode again earlier. Yeah, just familiarizing yourself with these buttons down on the bottom of your screen and which ones work well for which types of photos. And that just takes some time, taking lots of photos and familiarizing yourself with what you like and what you don't. And yeah, here's the slide on some of the tools that I use. Again, VSCO, that's my go-to. Quickshot is actually now called Light Leap. So I thought that I had updated that. I must not have saved the document. But that one has some more kind of intense filters, but can be really fun. You can replace the sky. Say if you took a photo on a gray day, you could actually like insert a sunny sky background into it. And it takes a little bit more getting used to, but can actually be done really tastefully if you know how. Snapseed has some great filters and has some like paint brushes or light brushes similar to Lightroom or Photoshop, where you can brighten or darken or increase the saturation or other features of a specific aspect of a photo. So if I had a photo of one of my employees or customers and they were really dark, but the background was really bright, I could actually like brush over them, the subject, the client, and brighten them, but not the background. And Cindy had mentioned that there were some questions about Canva. And so that's actually a design software. But if you're taking these photos and you're using them for pamphlets or for graphic design materials, Canva is a really awesome, simple, and free to an extent tool that provides all kinds of templates where you don't have to become an expert in graphic design. You can kind of plug and play, toss your image in. It'll give you a whole bunch of pre-designed options with nice fonts that pair well. And then you can go and change the colors and tweak the text to your liking. And then I just threw in a couple other quick ideas, which I may have touched on some of these already. I think the big thing is just that tutorials, Google and YouTube are your friends. Any question that you have, if it's how do I take beautiful photos of women looking off cliffs? How do I take awesome photos of the sun? How do I take photos in portrait mode? There's so many good resources out there, and this is how I've learned. Everything that I've learned is just from Google and YouTube. I never went to school for any of this. I've always worked for myself, so I've had to teach myself all of these things. And the other big way that I've learned is just doing it, just taking millions of photos and figuring out what works and what doesn't. If this doesn't come naturally to you, and if it's not fun for you, and you have a budget, and I know that there's lots of different programs for this, I'd suggest hiring a student. Like a 15-year-old to a 20-year-old are going to be probably a lot better at this stuff than most of us. And they've grown up with these tools. It's kind of social currency for them to know how to use these tools. I hired a kid out of high school while he was still in high school for my company last year, and he's incredible and brings such an awesome perspective. I literally just called the principal of Citadel High and said, hey, you must have some smart kids who love to make videos and take photos. And he said, yeah, we've got all kinds. And he's turned out to be a super valuable employee. So I think that could go a long way, just trusting the young folk. Again, just shoot a ton of photos and get everyone on your team taking photos if they can. I know people are busy doing their work, but that's the beauty of a phone is I can right now, without even looking, be taking photos in the background. It's like, it's as simple as hitting the button on the side, swiping up, and just tapping that button. I'd encourage everyone to be getting all their employees to get engaged with that. And then just like steal ideas. If you're offering like, whether it's like tidal bore rafting, or if you're like a lodge. There's all kinds of other businesses, whether they're in BC or in the States or anywhere in the world. Just look at market leaders and look at their Instagram. And if you're looking for ideas of what to shoot or how to frame your photos, just look at how those market leaders are doing it and steal and make it your own. I mean, we're doing that all the time. There's nothing new under the sun. So I think that's the internet is just an endless resource of inspiration for that. And then I had said at the bottom that maybe I could go back and go through some of the samples of the photos, but I think I touched on a few of those. But I think at this point, perhaps, Nick, we can open it up and I can answer some more questions and hopefully provide some more value in that forum. I'm curious what people's big challenges or questions are.
Yeah, definitely. So again, we have Dave here to answer our questions. So this is your chance to do it. So we do have a few more questions. One is so if you want to post on both Facebook and Instagram, do you recommend always taking a vertical and horizontal pic at the same time?
Yeah, I actually, I do. And we're working on this with our team right now. I'm constantly saying, if you're shooting something interesting, if there's a big moment with a client or we're on a big shoot, it's like, take a vertical photo, take a whole bunch, take zoomed in ones, take some horizontal photos, landscape photos, switch it over to video quickly and take 10 seconds of video. Like, you can really never be capturing enough, because there's so many different platforms and so many different ways that you can share these things. And then when you look back over a month or a year, it's pretty incredible to have all of that material to be able to tell the story of, hey, here's what our year looked like, or here's what our week looked like. I think that goes a long way.
Can you explain how you would use each of the settings that are on the portrait mode, such as theater, etc.?
I don't. I would, unless you're really experienced or taking photos that are super specific, like a product within a light box. I always use the regular one, to be honest.
The regular portrait, or is the regular photo mode?
Regular portrait.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Getting lots of this is great info, but that's just that's wonderful to hear. Thoughts on utilizing Reels? Is Instagram moving that way?
Yes. Reels are huge. The algorithm prefers them. And they're pretty easy to make. So I think you can just, like, it's as simple as capturing one nice 5 to 10 second clip, perhaps, that you captured, and then you're able to actually slap like top 50, top 100 music on it, and they're going to show up in the feed more prominently than a standard video. So
okay.
Two thumbs up for Reels.
Do you ever use a remote to take pics with your camera?
I do not. Okay. I do sometimes the self timer, like I'll set my phone up against a shoe or something, or a wall, but no, not many remotes. Okay.
That's just from the chat. So I'm gonna go over to the Q&A. So someone said, can you spell the name Lightly?
Yeah. So I had answered one earlier. Light Leak, one word. Light Leak.
Cool. Is there a good editor for videos?
The iMovie app on iPhone is free and is quite good. Yeah, really good.
What are your recommendations for shooting product photos for e-stores?
So this is less my area of expertise, but I mean, I would Google how to take product photos on iPhone. You could probably get a great lighting setup for like $100-200 off of Amazon. Maybe buy a little light box, which would be kind of like like just a fabric that would look like one of those fabric laundry hampers, but it would be white and would soften the light coming from all different angles. And probably familiarize yourself with that portrait mode.
Any tips on taking photos of landscapes from inside through a window to highlight the view outside? And I'm assuming that's to kind of highlight the view that you're getting from the property or the business, maybe.
Yeah, and something that I do all the time. I think the big thing, or one of the most important things, would be to familiarize yourself with the focus settings, because the danger with dirty windows, or even just like a regular window, is that the camera ends up focused on the window instead of the landscape that you're trying to shoot.
Right.
So I think the closer that you get to the window, the better chance that it's going to not be focused on the glass and be focused on that landscape. I've hundreds of times pressed my phone, like the lens, against the window. So a lot of those photos that I showed earlier would have actually been taken out of a window and you'd have no idea.
Okay. I guess are you saying there's no value in, like, because people would want to say, like, here's the view from the bedroom, or like or I guess
Oh yeah. I see there. I guess my tip then would be to expose for the brighter part of the photo. So if you're shooting from inside and it's a little bit darker, and it's bright outside, I would tap the outside to make sure that part of the photo is clear. And even if the indoors is too dark in your initial photo, it's easier to bring dark parts of an image and make them brighter, bring them up, than it is to make something that's blown out. When you shoot something that's too bright, and blown out is a term for when it's like just white, you can't see any information. You can't bring that back, but you can bring a dark part of a photo back and make it brighter and have more information there.
All right, Dave, I hope you blocked some time. I got a lot of questions here.
Yeah, let's go.
This is great. For product photography, wait, we already got that one. Boom. Do you ever deal with creative blocks when taking photos, and how do you deal with that?
All the time. And again, I go look at, I actually have an account, like a separate Instagram account, where I probably follow 100 different accounts, and it's just for inspiration. So if I need some ideas and I'm drained, I just go there and steal like an artist, to quote Austin Kleon, who wrote a really cool book called Steal Like an Artist.
So there's another question here on tips for taking product photos for e-commerce. So let's say there's a brewery on here today and they want to sell their, I don't know, a product, some merch or whatever, and they don't have anything, and they have their iPhone in their hand. Is there anything that you would, like, what would you do if you were in that situation, I guess?
Yeah. I'd probably, again, invest in a cheap lighting setup, like two lights with soft boxes, put them on opposite sides of the photo. I'd watch a few YouTube videos on how to light product photography or product photography for iPhone. And I'd maybe invest in a $20 iPhone tripod. So you can just get a regular tripod and then get a little clamp for your iPhone. So they're often on like an elastic or a spring, and they would kind of be like a clamp like that. You'd pull it up and it would be able to latch that phone to a tripod and make sure that you're taking the photos from the same spot. And then you could just cycle the images or the products out, take that same photo.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I have one of those tripods. They're great. You can get them online for like $10. Tips on how to organize hundreds of photos, programs or on the phone itself.
What I do is, let me be careful I don't have any weird photos in my phone here, but I'll go through and like as I'm cycling through, I'll hit the favorite button down there, that little heart, and then that puts those photos into your favorites album, and then you're much better able to, I mean, that's one of the simplest ways to do it, because I've got probably 10,000 photos on my iPhone and there's 400 in there. It's just an easy way to just sort your favorites. And then I use the albums a lot. I can see here like 365 Instagram photos, Dave personal photos, like Vancouver trip, Toronto photos. Yeah, just constantly sorting there.
So, and you can do that online, like on your iCloud account, which makes it a little bit easier to move them around. Do you have any suggestions on how to reuse content?
Yeah,
I mean,
so
I was gonna say you kind of talked about it the whole day of, cutting it a different way, or
Yep. And I guess also just giving yourself permission to repost something, because I think we're all so precious and think that everyone sees everything that we post. So oftentimes I'll say, oh, I don't want to reshare that because people have already seen it. It's like no one cares about you or your business as much as you do, and they probably don't remember it. So just post it again.
Perfect. All right. I'm going to start to really go through these rapid fire. Do you ever have you used your iPhone underwater?
Yes. It's awesome. So
Nice.
Cool.
I'm assuming you need a special case for that. I know we use a GoPro.
The new ones are waterproof.
Oh, really?
Water resistant. Cool. So kind of like at your own risk. But I mean, this one's been dunked 10 times and it's fine. I wouldn't suggest swimming down 100 feet with it, but yeah, they're water resistant or waterproof.
Okay. Do you recommend the iPhone lenses that you can buy for wide shots or micro?
I think if you get to a point where you know why you need them, there's some good ones out there, but I don't use them, and I feel really happy and with what I get and get paid all right to take photos on iPhone. So
okay. Do you know of an app that deletes the black lines that sometimes present on the top and under the video on Instagram?
That's probably a cropping issue. And so VSCO would have cropping settings where you can make sure that the video is oriented properly.
Cool. All right. There's a million questions here. This is great. What is your preference when taking photos with natural lighting versus studio lighting?
Natural. I lean towards natural because I want it to be easy as possible. So I use natural until I can't. Nice.
Okay. What do you do for storage of the tons of photos you look for? What do you do for storage of the tons of photos you take at a shoot, I guess?
I buy these, one 4 terabyte hard drive for $200. If you're taking just photos, it's probably going to take you years to run out of that. So I do that, but I also just buy an iPhone, spend the extra $500 so that I have a ton of space on it, so that I don't have to worry about that as much.
Do you have your iCloud set up so that it automatically uploads?
I'm kind of, I don't want to say I'm anti iCloud, but okay. I just keep it simple.
Okay. Most universally useful aspect ratio?
I think it'd be universally. I mean, square or like a 3x5, I think is what Instagram is, like 1080 by 1350. Okay. That one tends to work pretty well.
Okay. What are the pros and cons of using live settings on iPhone photos to use on social media and or websites?
I hate that setting, and I wish it didn't exist and turn on accidentally all the time. I don't really think that there's any. We're talking live photos, not live video.
I mean, I'm going to guess so, since we're focusing on photos. We'll go with that one.
Yeah. I don't do it.
Okay. That's pretty clear. Is there a pixel JPEG standard size you recommend for high quality resolution photos?
I'm not sure that I have no idea. Nope.
Just somebody backed you up and said they hate live photos also. Is there a pixel JPEG standard you recommend for high quality photos? So you said you're not.
Yeah, no idea. I think I just take it on the highest quality setting, and then if I need to reduce it after, I go ahead. But I think iPhone photos are pretty small to begin with.
Sure. Can you make them bigger? Like, could you change your settings to make it so that yeah, I know this is going to be an 8x10. So, do you know what I mean?
I'm to be honest, that's not it's not something I've thought about. Like I'm looking at my camera settings right now. Yeah, I don't think about that often. So I'm
Okay.
not
So
gonna answer.
one of the questions, another one is, what is the print quality of images for the newest iPhone? Could you get a decent 8x10 or larger image for print?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I think so for sure. Like, I mean, there's billboards here in Toronto that are say shot on iPhone. So, I mean, I'm sure
nice.
they're processed, but you can print an iPhone photo pretty big.
All right. So, Patricia, if it fits on a billboard, 8x10 will likely work. Let's see. Can you shoot good video on smartphone?
Yes, especially in
Shoot
good light.
stuff.
I do it all the time.
So it's interesting though, because oftentimes photographers will talk about using light. So I guess if you have poor light, is there a way to use that to your advantage?
So I think understanding which settings for video work better. So the 1x zoom on video is going to work a lot better and let in more light than the wide angle. The wide angle, the 0.5 setting, doesn't work well in low light. So there's that. There's also understanding in post-production how much you can change that image. So once it's in an editing software, it might look really dark on your camera, but you can brighten it a fair bit. I think just understanding the limitations beforehand is helpful. Yeah.
Perfect. And I feel like we have a lot of photographers on here, so we're getting some kind of tips of answers to some of our questions. So Scott said 300 DPI is usually asked for a high-res photo. Somebody wants to know how many smartphones you dropped in the Northwest Arm during your paddleboard adventures. I'm assuming this is someone that must know you.
I saw that from Robert there. Hi, Robert. 2. I dropped 2 phones.
Wow. That's why he has so many smartphones. You might want to use the cloud for those ones. Okay. Do you have suggestions on how to take photos in a small room, thinking of a hotel, trying to get a good angle of most of the room in? Also, how do you prevent glare coming in from a window with sunlight if you're facing the window? Good question.
Yeah.
So we want to get a good picture of a room, and we want to eliminate the sunlight from the window.
Yep. So in terms of a small room, I think just getting as close to one of the corners as you can. So I've backed myself up into a room and taken a photo. Like I literally have to put the phone behind me and get out of the frame and have it against the corner of the room, whether that's down low or up high. So, I mean, that's helpful in trying to be able to capture more of the space. I think familiarizing yourself with the wide angle setting can be really helpful in those instances as well. And then in terms of shooting into a window, aside from using physical objects like a curtain or something to soften that light, again, I think it would be understanding how to control the exposure and make sure that you're either increasing or decreasing it so that the most important part of the photo, the subject of the photo, is exposed best. So I don't know if it's not a super helpful answer. It's it is a challenging thing to do. And I think in a pinch, you just have to use your exposure settings to get the best light possible.
Sorry, and did that address the glare question?
Glare.
Off the window. I think the question was to get the image of the room, but also to make sure that you don't get the glare off the window, I believe.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm having a hard time imagining what that is. I mean,
like a flash, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, probably a matter of just moving around so that the lens isn't capturing the glare. And there's probably instances where it's unavoidable, to be honest.
Somebody said that Henry's photo has a small white box called Folio 2 Plus foldable LED studio. So that's something that maybe you can check out Henry's photo if you're taking some shots. How do I take photos such as products and foods? And this is less about good photos, but maybe it's if you're taking a picture of food, you want to be really close or far away, or what would be any tips for taking photos of products or food?
Um,
And we have your feedback on get the right setup and the lighting, but
yeah, I think, yeah, I feel like I've spoken to that a fair bit. And like on food, it's like just I think when I take photos of my food, I just take lots of them
yeah.
from different angles and figure out what works best in post.
Um, with the video editing software, like some useful video editing software, would that be same or different?
So
There,
iMovie's great on the iPhone. iMovie's great and free on a Mac. If you're on a Mac, we use Final Cut Pro. It's like a $400 one-time purchase, and it's so awesome and so easy to use. Super user friendly. That would be my top recommendation. And then Premiere Pro is the other industry standard available on PC and Mac, but in my opinion, more complicated, less user friendly.
okay. We're getting down on the questions, which is great. So, will iPads take the same photos as iPhones?
I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I think they take quite good ones, but I think the iPhone might actually be more powerful, but I can't say.
I mean, I would just based on kind of some anecdotal evidence, unless you're getting the newest iPad, people tend to have their iPads a little longer than their phones. The ones I've seen aren't as crisp, but that, of course, is all anecdotal. But like anything, when you're getting the newest one with the newest camera, and it's usually much improved. So we're going to get you one last question. It's an interesting one, I would say. A lot of people saying, great, this is helpful. Thanks for the tips. So this person is going to have some scientific tourism on remote beaches in Nova Scotia. So what would your recommendation be if you were hired to take some pictures to attract clients? They want to use landscape mode. Beaches are normally very bright, but also the people doing science on the coast. I guess they apologize for the long question. So they want to capture landscape beaches, which are often bright, but also the people doing science.
I think that beaches and sunny days and the ocean are, I don't want to say some of the easiest things to take photos of, but like you've got a very beautiful subject to work with. So that's a bonus for sure. In terms of attracting people to come tips, I think I'd say find a few filters on VSCO that are your go-tos, so that you're not having to reinvent the wheel every time that you're taking a photo. And I would just be taking photos all the time and slap a quick filter on them, learn to bring out some of the warmth from the sun and get those blues of the water nice by adjusting the hue a little bit, maybe adding a little bit of, like, this is my personal taste, a little bit of teal to that water. I think people like that kind of turquoise looking water if that feels natural. Yeah, and I mean, in terms of getting the ocean and the science, just shoot lots of photos again.
Awesome. Last question I have: are there color palettes you noticed to get better interaction from, i.e., green palette more likes than red?
I think that there's some pretty like anecdotal facts out there about warm photos performing better, and I tend to lean warmer than colder. So bringing the temperature of a photo up. No specific colors. I think if your following is comprised mostly of people who are fans of, or are familiar with your brand, then leaning to your brand colors is probably going to serve you well in some capacity. But I think I'd encourage you to go back and look at your last 50 or 100 photos and try and notice some patterns and what's worked for you, and then see where you can repeat that.
Well, that's great. That was without a doubt the most questions we've had ever on the webinar. I think there's over 50 back and forth. So that's awesome. Didn't include the chat. So I want to thank you, Dave. If anybody has any questions after the fact, just shoot it our way and we'll get it over to Dave and see if we can get some answers to us. But I think that one thing that, and Dave mentions it a lot, and I think it's a really good advice just to Google it. I mean, it happens to work a lot to me. You know, how'd you do that? Well, I just watched a 2-minute YouTube video and it showed me how to do it. So that's not always the answer, but sometimes it can give you some really great tips.
Absolutely.
All right, Dave, I'm going to take the screen back over. So just give me one quick sec here.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, well, that was a wonderful session. Thank you so much for Dave. Again, if you would like to take a view of it, see if you missed anything, you can always go back and watch it. Our next webinar will be on Thursday, June 3rd. And we just wrapped up our spring tune-up series, which was 6 weeks in a row. Really great. We're just finalizing the next roughly 6 months. So as soon as we have that updated, we'll have it on our website, tourismns.ca/webinar series. We would encourage you to stay connected with us. So our consumer site is novascotia.com. Our email address is tnsbusiness@novascotia.ca. Sign up for our In Touch newsletter, which we send out twice a month, at least, with information on webinars, any new programs or products. Follow us on Twitter at tourismns. Follow us at Tourism Nova Scotia on LinkedIn. Our corporate website is tourismns.ca. And our COVID-19 resources are tourismns.ca/coronavirus. A lot of great information there. Again, thank you for your time today. Thank you, Dave, for your time and really great tips. Hope everyone has a wonderful day, and thank you for joining us.